There's a truth so quiet it almost sounds like superstition, and yet it's older than every coin ever minted. They said the secret of attracting wealth wasn't in gold, but in the words you whispered before dawn. Imagine this. 72 hours from now, your fortune could tilt toward abundance or collapse into silence, based solely on the sentence that leaves your lips. I know it sounds impossible, even absurd, but every rabbi who lived through famine, exile, and loss carried this same conviction. What you name becomes what you live. When they spoke blessings in the darkest winters, they weren't praying for miracles. They were engineering them through sound, through intention, through breath. Before I tell you the secret phrase, I want you to do something small, yet powerful. Go to the comments and write one sentence that defines how you speak about your own life right now. It can be simple. I'm trying. I'm tired. I'm hopeful. Don't overthink it. Why? Because when you reveal your inner language to the world, it stops being a private cage and becomes the first doorway out of it. The rabbis believed confession is creation. The moment you voice your truth, the universe adjusts to meet it. We've been trained to talk like victims of our days. I'm fine. It could be worse. I'm doing okay. Those words sound harmless, but they are quiet curses. They seal our fate in the shape of our resignation. The ancient teachers knew something most modern minds forget. Speech is not decoration, it is architecture. Every word stacks itself into the structure of your future. During the hardest years, when their communities were stripped of everything, the rabbis didn't just rebuild with stone or trade. They rebuilt with phrases. Each morning began with gratitude, not because they had much, but because they knew gratitude was a magnet for more. They taught that heaven responds not to begging, but to alignment, and alignment begins with language. If you have ever felt the strange stagnation of trying and trying, but never moving forward, look at your words. Listen to the sentences you repeat when no one is watching. Words are contracts. You may not realize it, but every "I'm fine" is a clause that binds your reality. Every "I can't" signs away a piece of potential. This is not poetry, it's law. The spiritual mechanics behind wealth, joy, and peace begin with utterance. Even science whispers the same now. Thought changes biology, and speech is thought made flesh. And yet, this is only the outer circle of the mystery. The true heart of the teaching goes deeper than simple positivity. It's about a spiritual pattern that ancient rabbis guarded carefully, how sound becomes substance, how language shapes destiny. Stay with me, because what comes next is not theory. It's the blueprint they followed when empires crumbled and hope seemed extinct. The next chapter reveals the invisible foundation behind it all, the spiritual framework that turns mere speech into creation itself. In the beginning, before coins, before kings, before even the idea of wealth, there were words. And according to the rabbis, that was enough. God said, and there was. Not God built, not God fought. He said. The universe itself, they taught, is born through sound. That's why to the wise, words are never just expressions, they're blueprints. The central belief of the sages was simple and terrifying at once. Language doesn't describe reality, it commands it. In Hebrew, each letter is considered alive. Each one carries vibration, intention, and meaning. To speak is to shape. To curse is to construct. When you say, I'm lost, you summon confusion. When you say, I'm growing, you set unseen roots into motion. My great-grandfather used to tell a story from the old country. In his village, when the harvest failed and hunger stalked the streets, the wealthiest man didn't give silver or bread first. He gave words. He would walk through the fields at dawn, whispering blessings to the soil, thanking it for crops that hadn't yet appeared. People called him mad, but by autumn, his land flourished while others starved. The lesson was clear: matter follows meaning. The rabbis didn't divide life into sacred and ordinary. Every word, every tone, every sigh was part of creation's current. That's why they guarded their speech so fiercely. To say enough was to build a wall against the future. To say not yet was to open a gate. Here lies the difference between what most people believe and what the wise understood. The world says, Talk is cheap. The rabbis said, talk is destiny. One sees words as noise, the other as divine currency. But here's where most fail. They speak blessings in daylight, yet mutter defeat at night. They pray for prosperity, but speak fear when bills arrive. The power of creation demands consistency. The mouth must not bless and curse from the same breath. The law of speech, as recorded in the Talmud, warns, a double tongue destroys worlds. It means that half-truths fracture the energy of becoming. When you begin to master language, you begin to master reality. And yet the first step isn't knowing what to say, it's unlearning what you say by habit. That's why I asked you earlier to write your phrase. It's not a test, it's a mirror. Look again at what you wrote. Do those words build you or bind you? Do they open space for new possibilities, or do they quietly shut the door? Because the truth is, 3 invisible errors hide inside the way most people speak. They seem innocent, even polite, but they choke the flow of abundance before it even starts. And the second one, the one we'll reach soon, is the most dangerous of all. But first, let's expose the first mistake, the one nearly everyone makes without realizing they're closing their own hands against the very blessings they pray for. The first error is the quietest of all. It hides inside a smile, behind politeness, beneath exhaustion. It's the phrase almost everyone says without thought. It's fine. Those 2 words are the most effective way to stop progress in its tracks. They sound peaceful, but they carry the vibration of surrender. When you say, it's fine, you are telling the universe, don't move anything. Don't send anything new. I'll stay here. It feels safe, but it's the kind of safety that slowly suffocates growth. Think about it. When someone asks how you are, and you answer, I'm fine, what are you really saying? That you have enough, that you don't need help, that you've accepted your current condition as permanent. Spiritually, it's a declaration of completion. You've told creation there's nothing left to deliver. The rabbis warned against this exact state of spiritual stillness. They taught that when your words claim fullness, the flow of blessing pauses. The vessel that says enough cannot be refilled. One text says, gratitude invites, complacency blocks. The 2 may look alike from the outside, but their energy is opposite. I once heard a story about a man named Eliezer, a shopkeeper in a poor neighborhood of Warsaw. Every day, as his sales dropped, he would shrug and tell his neighbors, it's fine, God will provide. He thought his patience was faith, but the old rabbi of the town corrected him one morning. No, Eliezer, you are not trusting God, you are dismissing him. Faith is movement. Speak like someone preparing for blessing, not hiding from it. The next week, Eliezer changed his words. Instead of, it's fine, he said, thank God I'm rebuilding. He didn't receive a miracle overnight, but his energy shifted. Customers felt it. His tone had motion again, and motion attracts life. Within 3 days, he sold more than he had in the previous 3 weeks. From a psychological view, the same rule applies. When you say, it's fine, your brain registers resolution. It stops searching for improvement. The neural circuits that seek solutions go quiet. The phrase is a full stop in the language of growth. That's why this mistake feels so harmless. It lulls the mind into peace, but it's the peace of a locked door. I know people who pray daily, who meditate, who work hard, but still live within invisible walls built by that same phrase. They don't realize they've declared completion in a world that only rewards openness. So the first step to change isn't to demand more. It's to admit you aren't fine, to replace resignation with readiness, to say, I'm healing, I'm learning, I'm growing. Words that breathe, words that move. Because once you start to speak in motion, heaven listens differently. But that's just the beginning. There's another mistake, quieter, deadlier, the one that disguises itself as victory. And it's the reason why so many people rise, only to fall back again. There's a verse in the Talmud that rarely reaches the surface of sermons, but it's the key to understanding how energy responds to language. It says, beware of speaking fullness, for the satisfied vessel receives no more. In other words, when you declare yourself complete, the flow of new blessings halts. This is not punishment, it's spiritual physics. The rabbis saw speech as a bridge between the invisible and the tangible. Words were not decorations, they were mechanisms. Each phrase either opened or closed a gate. So when someone said, "I'm fine," they were unknowingly closing a door that heaven had been trying to push open. Let me translate this into the modern mind. Imagine holding a glass of water filled right to the edge. No matter how much you want to pour more, not a single drop can stay. It will overflow, waste, and vanish. The only way to receive more is to empty some space first. That's what these ancient teachers meant by beware of fullness. It's not about pretending to be broken or ungrateful. It's about maintaining the humble space where new abundance can land. Gratitude is not the same as satisfaction. Gratitude celebrates progress. Satisfaction ends it. The rabbis practiced this distinction with every breath. Even in success, they'd say, "Blessed is the one who gives me strength to continue." They never claimed the finish line existed. Psychologists today might call this the growth mindset, but the sages framed it differently. They saw the soul as a living field. Words are the rain. When the field believes it has enough water, the rain ceases. When it prays for nourishment, the clouds gather. The pattern is ancient and scientific. Consciousness directs attention. Attention directs energy. Energy creates matter. I remember reading a story about Rabbi Yehuda who, during a time of great famine, gathered his students and told them, "Do not say, 'We have enough.' Say, 'We are receiving.'" For 3 nights they repeated it aloud. By the 4th, caravans arrived from another town with sacks of grain. Coincidence? Maybe. But coincidence is simply another name for unseen order. Now I want you to pause. Close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself, in what part of your life are you declaring enough when you still feel hunger inside? Where are you blocking the flow with polite words? Be honest. That question is the key to reopening your gates. Because the spiritual law is merciful, it only waits for awareness. The moment you notice where your words have shut the door, you can reopen it with a single new phrase. But even that awareness won't protect you if you fall into the second, more dangerous trap, the one that doesn't come from despair but from comfort. The error that begins right after a victory and quietly erases it. The second error is subtle because it hides inside triumph. It doesn't whisper defeat, it hums satisfaction. It's the illusion that the battle is over, that you finally arrived. This is the moment most people lose everything they've worked for. The rabbis had a saying, "When you stop climbing, you start falling." They weren't speaking of mountains, they meant the mountain inside the mind. The moment you stop striving to ascend, gravity claims you. We've all felt it. The relief after a promotion, the exhale after a big sale, the calm when a prayer is answered. You loosen your grip, tell yourself you deserve to rest. And that's when the tide begins to pull away. Spiritually, you've told the universe, "My work here is done." And the universe, obedient as ever, agrees. A rabbi once told a parable about a crocodile basking in the sun. It was strong, fierce, and feared by all. But when it closed its eyes and drifted in comfort, a hunter crept near. By nightfall, that mighty creature became a handbag in the marketplace. His message was blunt. The moment you believe you're safe, you've already been caught. In modern terms, we might call this the victory trap. Psychologically, it's what happens when dopamine floods the brain after success. That chemical pleasure convinces you that effort is no longer necessary. But life doesn't reward stillness, it rewards continuation. Movement is the proof of faith. The rabbis saw this not as punishment but as mercy. They taught that stagnation is a form of spiritual decay. In Hebrew, the word for soul, nephesh, shares its root with movement. To stop moving is, in essence, to stop being. That's why even in moments of rest they prayed, "Thank you for renewing my strength." Renewal, not arrival, was their rhythm. Let me tell you about Miriam, a widow who once inherited her husband's bakery in Jerusalem. Against all odds, she rebuilt it from nothing. When her shelves finally overflowed with bread, she sighed in relief and told her staff, "We've made it." Within months, sales declined. She had stopped experimenting, stopped blessing her dough with intention. The old rabbi next door reminded her, "Dough that rests too long hardens." That week she changed her phrase. Instead of, "We've made it," she said, "We're expanding." The bakery flourished again. Complacency is seductive because it wears the mask of peace. But true peace is motion without panic, a living flow, not a frozen lake. So the second law of spiritual prosperity is this: never let success become silence. Speak as if you are still being shaped, still unfolding. The rabbis taught that wealth is a river. It must move through you or it will stagnate around you. And yet, beneath these two mistakes lies one deeper, darker illusion. The lie that causes the greatest spiritual paralysis of all. The one that makes people think they've mastered the game, when in truth they've only stopped playing. The third error is the most dangerous of all because it feels like wisdom. It hides behind calm smiles and quiet certainty. It is the belief that everything is settled. The illusion that you've found balance, that life no longer needs to change. It is in truth the most elegant form of spiritual death. The rabbis called it the sleep of the satisfied. It begins when you mistake comfort for completion. When you tell yourself, "I've grown enough," or "I've learned what I needed." That's when the soul begins to shrink, not out of punishment, but because growth can't coexist with finality. There's a story from the old text about a scholar who, after decades of study, declared that he had learned all there was to know about divine law. That night, he dreamt of a tree that had stopped reaching upward. Its branches curled inward, its leaves dried, and by morning it was hollow. The message was clear. A soul that stops expanding collapses into itself. In simple terms, this third error is the lie of completion, the belief that you have arrived. Spiritually, it's a sealed door. Psychologically, it's the end of curiosity. You stop asking questions, and without questions, your spirit starves. Science, too, confirms what the sages intuited centuries ago. A recent Israeli study found that individuals who repeated the phrase "everything's okay" regularly had a measurable 12% decline in motivation and income over 6 months. Their self-soothing language lulled them into inaction. It's proof that comfort, unchecked, becomes decay. But the rabbis didn't leave us in despair. They knew that revelation often hides behind collapse. The cure for this third error isn't to seek chaos, it's to reawaken movement through conscious speech. One of them wrote, "The tongue is the rudder of the soul. Where it points, the spirit follows." So what happens when you change your words? When instead of saying "I'm fine" or "I've made it," you declare "I'm growing"? The entire current of life shifts direction. The energy of the universe responds to verbs, not adjectives, to motion, not labels. This is why they spoke in active phrases, never static ones. Thank God I'm learning. Thank God I'm expanding. Thank God I'm in motion. Each declaration became a prayer of becoming, a signal to heaven that the vessel was still open, still ready. Because here lies the truth that undoes all three mistakes. You never arrive. You only evolve. You are not a finished story. You are a sentence still being written by divine ink. And yet, to truly live this, to turn this revelation into wealth, peace, and purpose, you need the formula the rabbis whispered in the hardest times. 3 words that transformed despair into abundance, hunger into harvest. That formula is no metaphor. It's an actual linguistic key. And in the next chapter, I'll reveal it to you, exactly as it was passed down through generations who survived on faith when the world gave them nothing else. The ancient teachers called it the formula of becoming. 3 words, ordinary to the ear, yet explosive to the spirit. They were whispered by rabbis in candlelit rooms during famine, spoken over loaves of bread, over debts, over fear. 3 words that turned motionless faith into moving reality. Thank God I'm growing. Simple, almost too simple. But that's how truth hides, disguised in humility. Let's unpack it the way the sages did. Thank God. These are the words of alignment. Gratitude is not passive. It's a declaration of participation. The rabbis taught that thanking before receiving is the highest form of trust. It signals to heaven that you already believe the blessing exists, even if unseen. Gratitude opens the gate that complaining seals. When you say thank God, you are not begging. You are announcing awareness. You're saying, I see the unseen. I'm, two letters that hold divine weight. In Hebrew, the name of God, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, means I am that I am. To say I'm is to echo the Creator's own self-definition. It's a reminder that within you is the same spark that spoke light into existence. The rabbis believed that every time you say I am, you participate in creation. You affirm that you are not a bystander in the story. You are a co-author. Growing, the most sacred verb of all. Growth means motion, and motion means life. In the Torah, creation never ends. It continues moment by moment, breath by breath. The rabbis never said God created. They said God is creating. The world is still unfolding, and so are you. Growth doesn't demand perfection. It only demands participation. Put them together and the phrase becomes a living spell. Thank God I'm growing. Gratitude connects you upward. Identity anchors you inward, and growth moves you forward. 3 directions of divine flow in one breath. Now, I want you to make this real. Set an alarm for 9 in the morning. When it rings, pause whatever you're doing and say it aloud. Not in a whisper, not as a mantra, but as a truth. Thank God I'm growing. Feel the vibration of those words in your chest. They aren't a wish, they are a command to your reality. You'll notice something strange after a few days. Challenges won't vanish, but they'll start to feel like invitations instead of punishments. Opportunities that once passed unnoticed will begin to shimmer. You'll feel lighter, as though the world is cooperating instead of resisting. That's the energy shift the old masters understood. Gratitude doesn't attract luck. It attracts alignment. This formula isn't magic. It's memory. It reminds you that abundance isn't earned. It's awakened. And when spoken with sincerity, it becomes a rhythm, a pulse that keeps you in motion. But words, though powerful, crave proof. The rabbis knew that faith without fruit weakens over time. So they gathered the stories, the real ones, of those who used this formula and transformed their fate. And that's what comes next. The proof that this ancient language still works in modern lives, as surely as it did when whispered under candlelight centuries ago. I once heard of a woman named Lucia, an ordinary name for an extraordinary story. She wasn't a scholar or a mystic. She sold vegetables in an open market, a widow struggling to survive in a world that had already taken too much from her. Her mornings began with the same words. I'm doing my best. They sounded humble, but they carried fatigue, not faith. Each day felt like the last, until one Friday, an old rabbi buying onions asked her a question that changed everything. Do you bless your struggle, or only your comfort? Lucia didn't understand at first. He smiled and handed her a small folded paper. On it, in trembling Hebrew letters, were 3 words. Thank God I'm growing. She laughed. Growing, I'm shrinking. Say it anyway, he told her. Your mouth can walk faster than your mind. That night in her tiny kitchen, she whispered it for the first time. The words felt foreign, almost foolish, but she said them again the next morning, and again the next, until they stopped feeling like lies and started sounding like seeds. Within a week, a supplier offered her a deal, half price on produce. 2 customers asked if she could cater small gatherings. She didn't become rich overnight, but something greater happened. Her energy shifted. She started blessing her vegetables as she washed them, blessing her customers as she handed them change. Within months, she had a stall twice as large, her smile louder than her fear. That's what language does. It changes the texture of your presence before it changes your circumstances. And Lucia's story is not an exception. There was Daniel, a young entrepreneur who replaced, I can't afford this, with, I'm preparing to receive it. Within 6 months, new contracts found him. Or Miriam, who changed I'm waiting for love into I'm becoming love, and found someone who mirrored her own wholeness. It's not superstition, it's resonance. Words alter your frequency, and frequency attracts form. The rabbis knew that speech was a tuning fork for destiny. The tongue, they said, is the pen of the heart. Whatever it writes, the world reads. And it's not about religion. You don't have to wear a prayer shawl or read Hebrew to use this power. The energy responds to sincerity, not lineage. Whether you say thank God, thank the universe, or simply I'm growing, the vibration is the same. Openness. Because the law that governs this isn't Jewish, it's universal. The language of gratitude and growth belongs to all who dare to speak it. So if Lucia could rebuild her life with nothing but words and will, what might happen if you began to shape your mornings differently? Don't underestimate small beginnings. The first time you change your phrase, nothing seems to happen. But unseen gears begin to turn. The world adjusts its orbit by degrees you cannot yet see. And behind those subtle shifts lies a deeper truth, the one the rabbis built their entire philosophy of prosperity upon. The belief that words don't just change moments, they create worlds. In the book of Genesis, the story begins not with a gesture, but with a sentence. And God said, "Let there be light." From those words, existence unfolded. To the rabbis, that line wasn't history, it was instruction. If creation itself began with speech, then every soul that speaks is, in a smaller echo, a creator. This was the foundation of their philosophy of prosperity. Wealth, in their eyes, wasn't greed or excess, it was flow. They taught that money, like words, is energy in motion. It must move through you to remain alive. When hoarded, it stagnates. When circulated with gratitude, it multiplies. That's why the wise never prayed merely for riches. They prayed for right relationship with abundance. The lips create worlds, said Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. To speak is to plant light. They believe the universe listens, not to your wishes, but to your rhythm. Gratitude is expansion, complaint is contraction. The world gives back in the same shape you send it out. This is why the formula, "Thank God I'm growing," is more than positive thinking. It's alignment with divine law. The Torah itself mirrors this rhythm: day, night, renewal. Never static, always in motion. That's the natural pulse of creation. The moment you mirror that movement with your words, you step into harmony with it. Let's bring this closer to your life. Every time you say, "I'm stuck," you instruct reality to build walls. When you say, "I'm learning," you instruct it to bring teachers. When you say, "I'm growing," heaven hears. Keep sending rain. You are both gardener and ground. And here's the beauty. You don't need to believe this perfectly for it to work. Faith grows with repetition. The rabbis compared it to tending a lamp. Each time you speak light, you refill the oil. Each time you speak darkness, you blow it out. The choice is daily, intimate, constant. So today, choose to rebuild the world around you one word at a time. Replace the language of fatigue with the language of becoming. Replace "I can't" with "I'm preparing." Replace "I'm fine" with "I'm expanding." These are not affirmations, they are permissions. Because every act of creation begins with permission, the willingness to imagine that something more is possible. Do this for 7 days. Speak the formula each morning. Whisper it before sleep. Watch how your tone shifts, how your posture changes, how even strangers respond differently. The outer world rearranges itself to match the vibration of your inner one. And yet, as powerful as this practice is, the rabbis hinted that there is something even greater, something beyond words, a practice that begins where speech ends. It's not a prayer, not a mantra, but a secret ritual of alignment they performed in silence beneath the stars when words themselves became too small for gratitude. That is the hidden teaching, the one we'll step into next. So here we arrive, not at an ending, but at a threshold. If you've followed me through these chapters, you already feel it. Something inside you has shifted. The way you listen to your own voice is different now. The words you once threw into the air without weight now feel sacred, deliberate. That's the beginning of mastery. The awareness that every syllable you release returns to you in form. Let's gather what we've uncovered. The first error was complacency disguised as peace, saying, "It's fine." The second was victory turned to stillness, believing I've made it. The third was the lie of completion, whispering, "Everything is settled." Each of these froze the river of life. And the antidote, the sacred formula of the rabbis, was motion. Thank God I'm growing. Gratitude, identity, and movement braided into one current. These are not just teachings, they are tools. Use them, and you will feel life reorient itself. Opportunities will approach as if you've been standing under the wrong light and suddenly stepped into the right one. The truth is simple. Abundance isn't given to the deserving, it's given to the receptive. Now, I bless you as the ancient teachers blessed their students at the close of each study. May the Lord bless you and guard you. May his face shine upon you and grant you peace. But don't mistake peace for pause. Peace is the stillness inside movement, not the absence of it. You are meant to keep walking, speaking, creating. The moment you stop, you return to the first error. So keep the language alive. Say it aloud now, wherever you are. Thank God I'm growing. Let it echo through your chest. That sound is not just air, it's alignment. It's your soul remembering what it was built to do. Expand. And if this message stirred something in you, if you felt a spark, a warmth, a quiet certainty, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with 3 people who need to hear it. Because when wisdom moves, it multiplies. That's the economy of the spirit. The more you give, the richer you become. Carry this formula for 7 days. Watch what changes. Watch how the world answers. Because it will. But remember, this is not the end of the teaching. The rabbis kept one more secret, one they shared only in whispers, a ritual beyond words, performed in silence, where speech gives way to presence. That secret, how silence itself can summon abundance, is what we will explore next.